Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and guess what? We're on Volume 2! Volume 2 of Heaven Official's Blessing. We're entering uncharted waters. We are entering into... I'm past the donghua now. From here on in, I have no clue what's going to happen, but we have like 7 volumes to get through, and this volume is probably going to take us some time, because I'm going to take my time with it, right? I'm going to take my time with it, not because I'm hoping this will channel the donghua to come out before I'm finished with it, or as I'm finishing with it, but I want to be able to take my time, because unlike the Volume 1 I feel like I could go through several parts at a time because I'd watched the donghua. I kind of knew what was going to happen. I could read, not fast read, but I could read and be like, okay, this is happening, this is happening. Now I feel like I'm going to have to pay attention because it's all new stuff. And MXTX, she leaves no stone unturned. Even as we've talked about in the comments, even the simplest line that seems like a throwaway line, she'll bring it right back. And you're like, oh, and so it's important to pay attention. And so now, from here on in, I feel like I'm going to have to take my time through this series and really see what's going to happen. So, and plus, the Manhua is just now going on, starting with the 2nd volume. So I think at one point I'm going to catch up with the Manhua, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But after the last segment, I want to say thank you to all of my fellow patrons. Y'all were so kind in offering to go through and double check everything and make sure there were no spoilers. Reiki went through and was like, not for this section, but for a future section, was like, when you get to this chapter of the Manhua, here's this chapter, and I've edited out the part that's a spoiler. And I'm like, amazing. So thank you. But luckily, they went through the chapters that are going to correspond with the chapters we're looking at tonight and said there were no spoilers. So I can look at the Manhua and feel okay. It's like, yay. So we're going to be looking at the very first part of the English translation, which is the web serialization chapters 32 through 34. And then we'll start in the Manhua with chapter 63. So I'm pretty excited. But yeah, I have no clue what's going to happen. I got a couple comments before we start, but I poured myself some cranberry juice. There's nothing in it. It's literally just juice. I just thought I'd be fancy. It's red like Sanlong, and it just felt fancy because we're starting a new volume. So there is that. Before I get into the comments, I do want to note that obviously there's a picture of Shilian on the cover holding the bandaged boy that we can only assume is probably Hua Chong. But inside the cover, I want to make note that there is the picture in the cover there with the mask coming off, which I thought was cool. But inside that is this really cute little picture of Sanlong and Shilian cooking. Look at Shilian's little bun. His little bun, and then Hua Chong has like a little heart coming out of his head looking at the cooking. Absolutely adorable. Freaking cute. So I've not read the back cover or anything. I just picked it up this evening and was like, all right, ready to start Volume 2 and see what's going to happen. So before we get to that though, and I've not looked to see like what pictures correspond either. I figure we'll do that after we hit the chapters. But I do want to talk about a few comments from people before we get going. Kix K talked about how, I thought this is really cool to bring up, that the face in the ground, Kamo, Banyu, and Shanji, who have been our main ghosts in Volume 1, talked about how they all went to incredible lengths as humans to do what they felt was necessary, either for the greater good or for themselves, or basically dying in despair. So, and they all became ghosts because of it, which I thought was interesting because you have someone like Pei Jr. who massacred a city and killed all these people, but he got to ascend to godhood, whereas these others kind of fell into despair and became ghosts. So I was like, that's an interesting kind of correlation. And it kind of just talks about, their humanity and just kind of how it was, tainted. And I thought that was really interesting. And we've kind of explored that in the last volume. And I'm going to be curious to see how that kind of carries on as we meet more ghosts and kind of get to see their backstories. So that's going to be really interesting to note. But also Kix K noted that in the pit, Sanlong catching Shilian was very similar to Shilian catching him as a child. I'm like, or I think it's a child. We don't know anything about this kid in the bandages, so that's going to be interesting. But I was like, that's a cool parallel to point out, especially as we start Volume 2. Interesting, right? So, Keon Fong talked about how Non-Fong, it's funny, he got all put out of shape by Xing, by Ying, old Xiao Ying having the torn skirt. He got all bent out of shape about that, but then he had to go fight 2 female gods. It's like, well, that's funny that Non-Fong doesn't have a lot of luck with women, and he gets stuck fighting 2 of them in combat. That was pretty fun to note. Pichu talks about Hua Chong. He doesn't like the Heavenly Realm. He thinks they're all a bunch of elitist snobs, But he does respect some of the gods. Like, he seems to respect Pei Ming because he says he's not going to act cowardly or underhanded. And he seems to respect Pei Jr. because he can relate to Pei Jr. doing things for Banyu like he's done for Xu Lian. So Hua Chong is not, it's not above him to respect some of the gods. He just doesn't like the heavenly realm or the upper court. And I'm like, that's interesting to note. SQQLB 314 talked about how Xu Lian, he could have been, you know, if the suicide bombers had gone through into Yong'an as the Banyu soldiers were originally intending to do before Pei Jr. and his plan stepped in, inadvertently, Xu Lian could have been one of the victims of the suicide bombers. And it's like, yeah, Xu Lian, once he left as General Hua, he ended up in Yong'an. And if their plan had gone through, he could have been involved in the bombings. And knowing his self-sacrificial self, he probably would have tried to step in and he could have gotten himself hurt all over again. So that's kind of sad. That's really interesting to note. Also, SQQLB314 noted how the Shan in Shanji does not mean the same thing as the Shan in the Windmaster's name. That Shanji's name, the Shan means to publicize, whereas the Shan in the Windmaster's name means mysterious, black, profound, or astute. But the Shan in the Windmaster's name means the same as the Shan in the Demon Shan, who is the ghost of the Blackwater. And I'm like, oh, so there's a connection possibly there. That's all they said. I was like, so the names have the same meaning. Interesting. So like, I was like, theorizing intensifies. Obviously, I don't want to be spoiled, but it's going to be fun going into this series, just keeping that, like, I'm going to pin that in the back of my brain in case if it comes up again. But I thought that was intriguing. So yeah. And then finally, Anime Annie talked about how the woman in black, she seemed wary of San Long. And I was like, yeah, she did. She didn't think Xu Lian was a threat at all, but she seemed wary of San Long. But it's curious, if she was in fact a god, because the Manhua in the last part kind of revealed she was the Earthmaster, if she was a god, she didn't really feel the need to point San Long out or call him out for being a ghost. But she clearly sees him as a threatening. So what do we do with that? I'm curious. Just things, again, pinning in the back of my brain. And then, yes, in the Manhua, San Long, he gives Xu Lian his robes to use as a pillow, which was cute. And if you look in the Manhua, he tucks the blanket of the bed up, and so his boots don't get the sheets dirty. San Long, Ghost King, but also a true gentleman. So yes, y'all, I am so ready to dive into these 2 chapters. Or 3 chapters, rather. These 3 chapters for part 7. And we'll just see how far it goes. We'll see how long it takes me to get through these chapters and what all that entails. But I still feel like there's a lot of pages to cover. So even though there's not very many chapters, there's a lot of info. So it'll probably end up being a lot. But I got my notes ready. I'm ready to dive in, see what we uncover in our first dive into Volume 2, and just see what happens. So with that being said, I hope y'all are excited. I am very much so as we dive into this part and see what we got to deal with. So we're going to start Heaven Official's Blessing, Part 7, Chapters 32 through 34. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Starting out with that little chain around his neck and going into Chapter 32 in the Great Martial Hall. The Crown Prince meets the Crown Prince. Ooh, I wonder if this is from the trailer. If we're going to cut right to that, the information, it seems like the trailer for Season 2 is starting where this is leaving off at. So we'll see. So they talk about how Xu Lian, he's surprised San Long would give him a keepsake, you know. And so he had the resolve to take good care of it, to ask the boy what the gift meant the next time they met. Like, what a boomer. Like, he's like, oh, the boy. I'm like, dude, San Long is a man. I'm a little scared by this notion that he was paralyzed at the shrine for a few days after everything caught up with him. And if it hadn't been for the overly passionate villagers, he could have been even more incapacitated because he didn't have any food to gain his strength back. Like, Xu Lian, you know, self-care, my dude, self-care. And then that's when Ling Wen sends him a notice to return to the heavens. Okay, so we're going to go into, like, the trailer images, right? Something bad was about to go down by her tone. Ooh, and he was mentally prepared to deal with Banyu Pass. Oh, so we're gonna get into Zhao and Pei Jr. Oh, shoot. Okay. Uh, oh, Junwoo was back. Oh. So he hadn't greeted him. Ooh. So he only had a few days of rest and he had to hike up to the heavenly capital. He couldn't just... I guess he can't just zoom in. Oh, no. Oh, nobody wanted to greet Shi Lian as he was going to the capital. And everybody was pretending he's just not there. Oh. Because because stuff's about to go down. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh. The Royal Highness was to a different crown prince and not Shi Lian. Oh. Oh. Huh. Junwoo translates to the Lord I Am. Wow, that's on the nose. He paused when he saw the other crown prince. Oh, and the junior's trying to just hurry him away from Shi Lian. Oh, so talk about Nanfang bumping into Shan Jin. Oh. Tai Hua. Ooh, Tai Hua. Oh. Oh. So he's the crown prince of Yong'an. Oh. The northern territory belonged to the palace of Mingguang, the martial god Pei Ming. The western palace Qiying was Chan Yisheng, and the southeast palace of Nanfang was Fengshen. The southwest palace of Shanjin was Muqing, and the one of the eastern territory belonged to the palace of Taihua, the martial god Long Changchu, right? Oh, interesting. Long Changchu, when he was immortal, was a crown prince like Shi Lian. However, he was the crown prince of Yong'an. The kingdom of Yong'an was a country that was built after the fall of Shanli. And the founder of Yong'an was a rebel general who successfully overthrew the royal capital of Shanli. Oh. When Shanli drifted in the mortal realm, when Shi Lian drifted in the mortal realm, he had also visited the east and naturally knew that the crown prince of Yong'an had ascended. As heavenly officials, it would be inevitable for them to bump into each other, so he didn't think much of it. Maybe to anyone else, the gossiping whispers, albeit not really whispers, would probably never be heard for fear of retribution. But those words were uttered without fear of Shi Lian hearing, maybe even hoping for something exciting to happen should he overheard. So Shi Lian pretended not to have heard nothing and casually walked away. Oh, interesting. Oh no, Ling Wen has dark circles under her eyes and arms full of scrolls. Get this girl a vacation. Oh, be more mindful once you've reached the hall. What do you think Pei Jr.'s sentence will be? Exile, probably. That's actually not too bad. Not too severe, he thought. Oh no. Exile was considered a temporary banishment for officials who had committed crimes, meaning the term of punishment was negotiable, but there might be opportunities for resuming duties. Funny that. If one day they should be found to be on their best behavior, they might yet get fished back up, maybe in 30 to 50 years, maybe in 100 to 200. But to Shi Lian, this not too bad was, of course, judging by his standards. To General Pei, it would be a completely different story. Oh, and so I haven't found anything about the boy with the human face disease. Okay. Oh, and he still thanks her. Okay. Ooh, the pair of eyes were obsidian black, but bright and clear, as if formed by the melted snow of a lake frozen for millions of years. Ooh. Oh. But his eyes were like steel blue in the trailer, so... Interesting. Oh. This meeting wasn't for discussing General Pei Jr. and the Banyu Pass scandal. The spotlight was on him. What? Did they just trick Shi Lian into showing up? No, what? What? Chapter 33, in the Great Martial Hall, Crown Prince meets Crown Prince 3. Oh. The martial god looked to be about 26 to 27, graceful and confident. Looking at his face, Shilian thought he looked even more handsome than the statue he saw at Mount Yujin. It was the kind of handsome that could definitely steal hearts. Very much the charming type. Shilian didn't respond. He continued, "Our little Pei has been in your care." I've definitely offended him, Shilian thought. He returned the greeting. "Please don't trouble yourself over it. I've heard much about you as well." So it is Pei Ming. Only 26 or 27, he looks. I thought he'd be older than that based on the whole thing with Shanji, but interesting. I mean, he looks 26 or 27. He's obviously much older. Okay. Oh, no. Oh, interesting. So there were many stories about his affairs, good and bad, within wanton alleys. The good stories were like he used his gold to help save a piteous prostitute from the brothels, and she fell in love and remained pure to await his return. And the bad stories were that he had traveled thousands of miles to spend a one-night stand with a married woman, etc., and so on. On some level, Pei Ming was an awe-inspiring man. Oh! Shilian thought it quite unbelievable that after so many years, only one Shanji that came out of that way of life. Interesting. Well, Shanji was the only one that found Chi wrong, so maybe that's it. Interesting. Because Pei Ming was skilled in both battle and in love, many of his rivals and fellows loved cursing him to go die, and even better, if he died from syphilis. Oh my god. But his life force was tough, and he never got infected with anything, even after the many flowers he'd picked. Ooh, that line. He wouldn't die, and he'd even live longer than most of his fellows, until finally one day he lost a battle. Everyone laughed, thinking at last it's his end, but then lightning crashed and thunder roared, and in that moment of danger he ascended to the heavens. Oh. So this was before he even ascended. Interesting. But he ascended after he lost a battle. Interesting. Ooh, from fairies to lady officials to female ghosts and demons, as long as they were beautiful, he would pluck them. His favorite type was still the charming ladies of the mortal realm. This guy gets around! What? And if it wasn't for Shilian's method of cultivation that demanded purity of body and mind, he probably would have read a couple of these books just out of curiosity on Pei Ming's exploitations. Oh my god. So no porn for Shilian. Now, San Long might be a different story. The god of love. What? Okay, so the corpse in the midair, that's Zhao's body, right? It was an empty shell. It had no soul. It was covered in blood from head to toe. So it was no different than a corpse. Oh, yeah. What's the meaning of this? I went to visit Lil Pei and he mentioned something interesting. Oh, he paced a half circle around Shilian. Even if his clone's powers are reduced and nowhere near the same as his true self, it's still quite competent. It's still capable of fighting evenly with a savage ghost. He told me there was a mortal that was able to beat him to the point where he had to relent. Now, isn't that interesting? Oh, they're getting him to out Hua Chong. There was a red-clothed young man next to Your Highness while you were at Banyu Pass. Oh. Uh-huh. Who he was. If it wasn't a savage, it must be a supreme. Dressed in red. Oh, really? About that? I don't really remember it well. There was a caravan that was trapped in Banyu Pass, and we spent a few days together, so maybe it was someone from the caravan. You and the young man were abnormally close. Not like someone you've met for only a few days. How can you not remember? Oh, it was only a few days. Yeah, no, true. And there's the Windmaster. Ooh, okay. The tea is spilling. General Pei, you've only heard Little Pei's side of the story. He's committed a crime and he's currently in detention, soon to be exiled. Whether his words are believable needs to be discerned. No? Ooh, Windmaster. Come on, girl. Yes. Oh, and Pei Ming's gonna bring Nan Yang and Mu Qing into this, isn't he? Oh. Fang Xin and Mu Qing standing separately on the southwest and southeast corners of the hall. Oh, he looked just like he did in his memories. His brow slightly furrowed, as if there was always something annoying him, but he really wasn't annoyed at all. Mu Qing, on the other hand, was somewhat different than he remembered. Oh, his face is pale. There was a cool air of "don't talk to me" surrounding him. Which he's with Fu Yao, right? A finger on his right tapping his left elbow softly, looking like he was either at ease or more like he was scheming something. Oh. This was the first time since Shilian's third ascension he'd come face to face with the two of them. He could sense all the eyes on them going wilder. Wild was inevitable. Oh. The first time he ascended, Fang Xin and Mu Qing were his deputy generals. At the time, they were only low-ranking officials in the middle court, without even the right to run errands within the Great Martial Hall. And now, not only could the junior officials of back then now stand in the hall, their rankings were even higher than that of their old master. Truly a turn of fate. Oh, they have fought with Hua Chong before. Oh, so they have fought them. Oh, interesting. To inspect the wounds. Oh. It's him. The scimitar Yi Ming. Ooh. Shilian's the only one that doesn't know the significance of these words. The scimitar Yi Ming was the very same freakish weapon Hua Chong had used when he singularly challenged the 33 officials and beat them to a pulp, disseminating their souls and dignity. Oh. Pei Ming had obtained his objective. Oh. Are you saying His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince of Shanli, colluded with the Supreme Ghost King specifically to frame General Pei Jr., which is not what happened, no! Oh. So now the Windmaster's a man again. Oh! He had a wisp between his arms and carried a long sword on his back and a folding fan tucked in his white jaded belt. His form was graceful and elegant, his expression spirited. He looked familiar, but Shilian couldn't recall where he'd met anyone like this. Ah! But it was the look of an irritated elder who didn't want to deal with children. Oh, because the Windmaster's so much younger. Okay. Oh. It may not be collusion. Except that person is powerful and wicked. Who knows if they might have used deceptive tricks to blind His Royal Highness. They're gonna make Hua Chong the perpetrator behind the chaos of Banyu Pass. Wow, they're gonna scapegoat Hua Chong instead of Banyu. Huh. Oh, so he does know it's the Windmaster. Back in the sinner's pit, Pei Jr. admitted to the crime of luring the passerbys, and the Windmaster heard everything. Oh. Since we're both here at the Great Hall, you can very well ask our Lord whether I have traces of any spells or deceptions. Oh. Let's keep things clear and separate, General Pei. Let's not talk about whether the young man I traveled with was Hua Chong or not. Even if he was confirmed to be Hua Chong, it has nothing to do with what Pei Jr. has done. A Supreme Ghost King might have the worst of names on people's lips, but not everything can be blamed on him either. Ooh, his expression was composed and neutral when the name was uttered, but many in the hall had cold shivers running down their backs. Oh my gosh! I can't wait to see this in the donghua! Oh! Ooh! No matter what, I believe this affair needs to be re-examined. It'd be best if the guoshi that your Royal Highness has taken away, Banyu, could be brought in for interrogation too. To interrogate her for what? Force her to lie? Shilian hadn't yet responded when someone else spoke up first. Pei Su looked as if he didn't want to remain in the Great Martial Hall anymore. He said in a low voice, "General, let it go." Oh no, Pei Jr. doesn't want her there. What? There isn't any spell of deception. It's all my doing. I've disappointed you. Oh. Oh. What enchantment concoction did the Banyugoshi feed you? Shut your mouth. No, he loves her. Leave him alone. Leave Pei Jr. alone. No. Oh, no. Let it go. He was just about to kick Pei Su over the head to wake him up when Junwoo spoke. Enough. Oh. And so they're going to exile him. Oh no. Oh. Oh, and Pei Ming's just not gonna let it go. He's like, well, fine, Pei Jr.'s to be exiled, but that scimitar, it was Hua Chong, right? And then it's like, this is a whole different matter. Oh. Sean Lee, you stay. Oh no. When Feng Xin passed by, he glanced at Shilian, looking as if he had something to say, but stopped himself. Shilian smiled at him, and he was startled before hurrying away. Mu Qing, however, walked past without sparing a look, as if Shilian never existed. The white-clad cultivator walked over with his whisk in hand and a huge smile, ready to speak. But Pei Ming, who had just lost favor, walked over too, and with one hand resting on his hilt and the other rubbing his nose, he said helplessly, Xing-shan, for your brother's sake, could you not stir up trouble? The smile disappeared from the face of the white-clad cultivator. General Pei, there's no need to use my brother against me. I'm not afraid of him. Pei Ming was enraged, but couldn't do anything. Finally, he pointed at him. You've really done little Pei in now. 200 years of exile. The white-clad cultivator swung his whisk wildly. That's little Pei's own doing. This has nothing to do with me. Brother, huh? Interesting. The only one who remained besides Junwoo and Shilian, who was below the throne, was actually the crown prince of Yong'an, Long Qingqiu. Shilian was curious. Why did he stay? Fast asleep while standing. Shilian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and feeling quite awed, tapped the young man's shoulder. Your Highness, Your Highness? What happened? Nothing happened. The meeting's over. Long Qianchu was still dazed and asking confused. And over, just like that? What did we all discuss? I didn't hear anything. Oh, there wasn't anything important. Oh, thanks for waking me. What? What? That's such the weirdest thing. The weirdest encounter. Suspicious, but okay. That's weird. Giving me Hwasong vibes, honestly. Ooh, the crimson rain sought flower, the scimitar Eming. Oh, like a cat picked up by the scruff of his neck. What's going on? Oh. I'm sorry. Then do you admit to your wrongs? I do. Then why don't you tell me what that wrong is? Shilian. Oh. Oh, so there's a note here. In order to become a god, one must first become a hero, which is one who is special amongst mortals. Only a properly ascended mortal can become a heavenly official. How do their servants become proper officials? They have two options. First, they have to be adept at a particular skill and enter either the martial or civil rank. Second, they have to have the luck. If they have good luck, then there's a good chance. If they randomly find some spiritual potion on the side of the road, that works too. The officials in the middle court are those brought in by the upper court as deputy generals or servants. Basically, if you're on good terms with the big guns, they can pull you up. Although not a full-fledged official, you're still part of the heavens. So there's all sorts of people. So say a heavenly official had a close relationship with you, or if they brought you, or if they thought you have a bright future, they'll promote you first. As long as you have the skill and chance, you can become a big gun yourself too. I guess chapter 33 was Crown Prince meets Crown Prince 2, because this is Crown Prince meets Crown Prince 3. Okay, so maybe that was just a typo on there. I'll look in the book after I'm done reading this. Shanley is all grown up now. There's something creepy about that. I don't know, as these two are walking down the hall. Oh, 800 years ago when I sent you down, I told you to keep periodic communication with me so you wouldn't be rolling in the mud all by yourself. But the moment you went down, all communication was cut and you had to go torment yourself. You've been ascended for some time now, but not once have you reported the Great Martial Hall. If anyone else was this impertinent, the Palace of Ling Wen would have reproached them directly. Oh. If your apology was for those few sword stabbings, then let it go. You said so yourself. Everything can be forgiven after stabbing. Oh, how can I forget? Then look to the future. There is much we need for you. We need you for. Shilian rubbed his forehead. Shanley is nothing but a lowly, rubbish god without power. There is no need for me. I only ask not to be burdensome. Why depreciate yourself? Didn't you perform splendidly in the last 2 cases? Except I may have offended General Pei. Ming Guang is fine. I'll watch over him so you needn't worry. However, tell me, what kind of extraordinary character did you engage with when you descended this time? Oh. I did nothing. Just one day by chance I encountered an interesting child in the room. We spent some time together. I didn't think much of it. Chance encounter, child, supreme ghost king. Shanley, you do not know that. You do know that if Ming Guang was to question you further, and you had confessed this in front of the other officials, what consequences would be? No one would believe you. He's referring to himself in the third person, which is disturbing. Oh, so what does he want to send him about? Oh, so all on the mural and the map, there's tiny pearls like stars. Each of them mark a martial temple. Ooh, interesting. Oh. They weren't as dense, but now the shimmering jewels were plentiful, overwhelming in radiance. A dragon of fire, soaring through the sky from a forest in the east. Ooh, why did Shilian grow serious? The spell for the ascending fire dragon emits intense flames that do no harm. It's a call for help. A distress signal that came from a heavenly official. It's one of desperation. Ooh. It took an immense amount of power. If the casting official was not careful, they could implode and destroy their spiritual core. Unless they were at the end of the rope, very few would go this route. It meant a heavenly official had fallen into grave danger. Are there any officials whose whereabouts are unknown? Oh. So they called everybody back to see who didn't show up. Oh, other than those who usually do not show, like the Rain and the Earthmaster. Even those who couldn't make it reported back in. Maybe it wasn't any of the officials from this term. Maybe it was a retired official. Ooh. Many retired officials have long lost contact with the heavens. So the idea of retirement, that's interesting. I wonder if they're just like Shilian and they were banished or they were exiled. Okay. Oh, this is why they were so busy trying to figure out who it was. To corner a heavenly official to the point of using a self-destructive spell, it must be the doing of great evil. Are there any demonic gatherings or layers in that area? There are. The Ghost City. Ooh, I've heard of it. Okay. The most prosperous place within the Ghost Realm, situated right at the crossroads of the mortal and ghost realms. Interesting. Of course it'd be right at the crossroads. Interesting. This is where all manner of spirits, ghosts, demons, and monsters gathered in swarms to conduct trade and exchanges. Cultivators of certain levels could also go to do business or seek information. Sometimes there would be heavenly officials in disguise, mixing in for curiosity's sake or for other unknown reasons. There were also those who'd enter by mistake and would either be eaten alive or scared to death. Oh my gosh. Since ancient times, although not as ancient as Shilian, our boomer ghost! There have been many tales of the Ghost City in the mortal realm. Shilian remembered one story. Had a man traveling at night who saw a bustling market before him and large red lanterns and colorful signs. He entered the market in high spirits, but found that everyone around him had a mask, and if they were not hooded, then they were extremely ugly. Very curious. He didn't think deeply about it and bought a bowl of noodles and sat down. Oh, but as he ate, the food didn't feel right. When he looked closely, the noodles were actually squirming strands of hair. Oh, gross! It has a very Spirited Away vibe. After seeing that pillar of fire, I immediately sent officials to investigate, but there was no evidence of anything. So it's possible they moved to the Ghost City. However, the Heavenly Realm and the Ghost Realm have always drawn very clear borders, and without enough proof, we can't intrude on the Ghost City. I need someone to descend in secret and probe the Ghost City. Oh, The first candidate he had in mind was him. It may be inconvenient. The East is ruled by Long. How interesting. How interesting. Long Chi-Chu is there. If you must go, you have to cooperate with him. That's not a problem. Don't worry. Interesting. Do you know whose territory the Ghost City sits in? Is it Hua Chong? Oh, the pillar of fire in the eastern forest blazed up 7 days ago, and that was when Hua Chong left the shrine. Oh no. Something's amiss. Something's up. Something's up. I smell a scandal. We're gonna get Whiteboard Kun out for this. There's things amidst. If you feel awkward, don't force yourself. If you have any other suggestions for you to nominate, let me know. He says, no, let me go. I don't think the Crimson Rain Sought Flower is a disingenuous individual. Sean Lee, I know you're very capable and know what you're doing. However, I also know you always think the best of everyone. Please don't say it like I'm a princess who never left home. Those words don't really suit me anymore. Oh, I shouldn't comment on the friends you make, but I'll say this: be careful of Hua Chong. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Leave our bean alone. Ugh. He should have responded with, yes, my lord. After all, it was habit by now, but for some reason he didn't want to say this yes. Stand up for yourself, Shilian. Be careful of that wicked blade of his. What do you mean? The scimitar Yiming, it's a cursed blade, a blade of misfortune. An evil weapon such as that does not need a terrifyingly cruel sacrifice. Would need a terrifyingly cruel sacrifice and a bloody determination before it could be forged. Do not touch it, do not let it injure you, or the consequences would be unimaginable. San Long probably wouldn't strike him with a blade. But he responded with Shanli understands. Oh no! I'm getting like Claude Frollo vibes with Junwoo here. I don't like it. I'm getting like it's Frollo and Quasimodo vibes, and I don't like it. Be careful of that gypsy, Quasimodo. Be careful of that gypsy, San Long. I'll naturally be at ease with you taking this case. If you don't feel any awkwardness, then even better. But going on this mission by yourself may be too much. Are there any other officials you'd like me to appoint to this case? It doesn't really matter. Preferably somebody easy to get along with. It'd be good if they're powerful so they can lend me some spiritual power from time to time. You struck out both Nan Yang and Zhang Jin with the first condition. Oh. No one could say that Feng Xin and Mu Qing of today were the personalities that were easy to get along with. How it goes between the three of you? Have you spoken with them yet? Oh, he never entered the communication away. Ah, interesting. We spoke a few words. Oh. Yeah, he did destroy those. He's like, I paid back that debt. 8,880,000 merits. Oh. Oh, thank Nanyang. When I heard Ling Wen say it was he who privately approached her and said there wasn't any need for you to pay back the reconstruction cost. Oh. Fang Xin didn't make him repay it. Interesting. Interesting. I didn't know about this at all. Oh, it was so much was already forgiven. Oh. It'd be best to keep pretending to be ignorant. Oh. He didn't know how to feel about this. Complicated and bittersweet, his mind was clouded and all over the place. He sighed soundlessly and thought, truly in this world, the words, don't tell anyone, are empty. If Nanyang and Shuzhen will not do, how about the Windmaster? The Lord Windmaster is very good, but I don't know if she would want to go on this mission with me. Oh, the Windmaster. Okay, so Junwoo suggests the Windmaster. Interesting. It's powerful, a lively person, enjoy making friends, and thus matches your first condition of easy to get along with. Oh, I think you two will be all right. If you don't have any other questions, then descend with the Windmaster and investigate Ghost City. Work hard, but do not force yourself. What is my lord saying? I'm not forcing myself. Ooh. Ooh, return to the palace of Shanli to rest for now. I'll send word to summon the Windmaster. I don't have enough merit, so no palace has been erected. The palace of Shanli from the past has long since been torn down. So what palace of Shanli? I've granted you a new one. You cannot possibly always squeeze into that broken down little shrine. Oh. Oh. The palace of Shanli was practically exactly the same as the one he'd had in the past. Red glass walls, sumptuous and elegant. Not a shred of desire to enter came to him. The scrap immortal was still best suited for a scrap shrine after all. A proud and glamorous heavenly palace like this wasn't a place he could stay. Oh, he just loitered around the outside entrance. But the one who appeared wasn't the lady cultivator in white, but another white-clad cultivator. It was the one from the meeting who randomly fighting Pei Min. Xingshan. He waved his whisk. Greetings, fellow cultivator! I'm going to start using that. I love it. He wanted to ask who he was. He thought it'd be rude to do so. Let's go. Let's go check out down below. My friend, I'm waiting for someone. Who are you waiting for? I'm waiting for the Windmaster. I'm right here. You're the Windmaster? I am the Windmaster. Was there ever any doubt? Did you not know who I was? Have you never heard my name, the Windmaster Qingshan? His tone was irrefutable and absolute, strong and confident, as if Shilian not knowing his name was an impossible thing to happen. The folding fan had the word Wind Feng written slantedly on the front, and the backside had 3 inclining line drawings, the exact same fan the lady cultivator in white had in her hand. He suddenly recalled Fu Yao had mentioned that some upper court heavenly officials, under special circumstances, had the ability to transform their appearance. Had been a man. Ah. Oh. You, why did you disguise yourself as a woman last time? What? Was I not beautiful? Well, yes, but... Oh, if I was beautiful, then there's no but, as long as I looked good. Of course, it's because I looked good that I was in disguise. Oh. Speaking of which, do we need to go undercover for this mission to Ghost City? What? Oh, they want Shilian to be a girl? No! Oh! There's a lot to talk about, and that was only 3 chapters. So, oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Yeah, Whiteboard Coons. Whiteboard Coon is going to have to come out. So I'm going to go look at the manhwa, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this. There were a lot of people in the Discord that were saying that the Banyu arc is great, but now the plot begins. Y'all weren't lying. Holy cow. So for 3 chapters, we get quite a bit. Now, I was a little nervous at first. I'm like, I'm only reading 3 chapters. What all could we get? Indeed. MXTX, you saucy minx. You're crafting some fun stuff, and I'm so curious. So curious. There's so much in these chapters that I was like, What are we setting up? What's going on? What's happening? It's all a mystery. We're going to Scooby-Doo it. I'm like, of course, Shi Lian is going to the city where San Long is. Are they going to be like best buddies again once he gets like on his turf? Is it going to be different? Like, how's this going to go down? There's a lot I'm looking forward to. Let me say that. I'm like, oh my God. So, anyway, as far as these chapters go in the novel, there's only one picture that we get. And the one picture that we get is on page 33, which is of our emperor here. Our emperor. Old Jun Woo, as it were, walking the halls with Shi Lian. So yeah, let's talk about this now, shall we? Yeah, these chapters are interesting. We're getting into finally Jun Woo, the Heavenly Emperor, who I get total Claude Frollo vibes from, and Shi Lian being like Quasimodo, and San Long is basically Esmeralda, except there's no middle guy. There's no other guy. It's literally like if Esmeralda and Quasimodo got together in the end. That's the vibe I'm getting. We'll talk about Frollo. If you've not seen Hunchback of Notre Dame, then this probably means nothing to you, but we'll talk about Jun Woo's concern for Shi Lian, right? We'll talk about that as we go. But I took some notes, lots of notes. I brought Whiteboard Kun out because I feel like with these new chapters, we're gonna need Whiteboard Kun because there's lots of new heavenly officials. There's lots of plot things, lots of theorizing, lots of stuff going into these chapters. Obviously, I don't want spoilers of what's to come or hints or clues. But so my theorizing, I just imagine all of you sitting back there cackling, being like, she has no idea, and I don't. So, but yeah, these chapters were interesting, just setting up. I imagine this was the first episode of the donghua being put forth to us. That's just what I imagined. The first chapter just being thrown out there to us and being like, this will be episode 1 when we get to it. So let's talk about some things. So first of all, we have the ring. We start out with Shi Lian admiring the ring that he got. We get a little bit of lore about Shanli, about the city that Shi Lian is from, that the Heavenly Emperor calls him about. So we get a little bit about Shanli, about his home. And so we get this idea that the city itself had a wealth of treasures, to the point where the people of Shi Lian City were constantly like, they had lots of jewels, they had lots of treasures, the kids would play with jewels in the streets, things like that. So the idea of San Long giving him a diamond ring is not very surprising. I wonder if San Long is from Shanli, that is from the same city that Shi Lian is from. They're from the same place, because he knew that. Also, there's something about the diamond ring that Shi Lian notes is kind of weird. It's very special. It seems like the material it's made out of is rather interesting, right? And so he decides that when he sees San Long again, he's going to ask him about the ring. He's going to ask him about what it's about. Like, why'd he give him a ring? What's the deal with it? What's going on? I don't know. Why would you give him this ring? Now, theory time. We talked about the ring and everything. I wonder if possibly the ring might have some of San Long's ashes in it, maybe. And that's like he's giving him his ashes as like a romantic gesture. But I don't know. Why would he give them to him now? Why hold on to them now? What's the point? And it's lucky, that Shi Lian decides to keep the ring on his person, because he debates keeping it in the shrine. He's like, maybe I could put it here in the shrine for safekeeping. But then he realizes there's really no place for him to put it. And so he's like, I guess with me is the safest place for it. So he decides to wear the ring that San Long gives him. The only thing I can think of what the ring could represent is, does it have some of his ashes in it? Because that's the whole thing about the romantic gesture of giving someone your ashes to control them, whatever. Could they be inside the ring? But you would think if they were in the ring, Shi Lian would like notice some particles or something in it. You'd think he'd call it out because he seems to examine it. So maybe that's not the case. Does it have like a special property? Like, is it like a talisman that will protect him from ghosts? I could see that being the case, because San Long is all about keeping Shi Lian safe. And he's like, well, if I'm not here, then you can keep this ring on you and it'll keep you safe from ghosts. They can't hurt you. Maybe there's something like that. Maybe it'll give him some sort of spiritual power, like kind of a boost or something. Can ghosts even do that for heavenly officials? There's that possibility. Is it like a way he can get passage into a certain part of the ghost realm? Maybe is it like a symbol that's going to get Shili into a special part if a ghost sees it? There's lots of possibilities of what this ring could mean, but Songlong gave it to him for a reason, and I don't think it's just a parting gift. I think it has another purpose. So we'll see. It's a Horcrux, no, but we'll see if it actually has any purpose. But Shilian keeps it with him and decides that it's the best place to hide it. So there is a part of this novel that's kind of like, it's just the briefest thing, but I was like, oh my God, Shilian. He talks about how he was so exhausted and like spiritually drained from their experience with Banyu Pass that he was literally paralyzed for a few days. Just paralyzed. Just couldn't get up and move around. Just was bedridden for a few days. And he's like, well, if the people hadn't come about and gave him like some steamed buns and soup, he probably would have been incapacitated for a little bit longer because he wouldn't have had the strength. I'm like, Shilian, this is why Songlong worries about you, because you're so self-deprecating. And he's just like, it's fine. I was just like paralyzed from malnutrition and stuff for a couple days. It's fine. I get my energy back. The locals felt sorry for me. Ha ha ha. I'm like, no, Shilian, that's not good. But yeah, he says he was paralyzed for a few days, 7 days, in fact. He was paralyzed for a week, because we established later on that it had been a week since Songlong left. And then Ling Wen calls him to the temple. Calls him to the temple for a grand meeting. And Shilian believes that he's being called to the temple because of the whole Pei Jr. thing. He's like, oh, it's going to be like a trial. I need to show up and be a witness, give him a testimony. Easy peasy, but that is not why he's been brought into the heavenly realm. And it becomes very clear it's kind of a trap as soon as he goes in. But so he comes back to the heavenly realm, and Shilian's just ignored, which it drives me nuts that nobody, not only is he ignored, which he says is pretty common for people in the heavenly realm to ignore each other because they're busy with their own business, but they go out of their way to avoid him. And I'm like, Shilian, they just treat him like the plague because he's been like a god of misfortune and the plague. We'll talk about the whole second ascension. We're going to go back to it because it is shrouded in mystery. MXTX is apt not to mention it, right? But they just avoid him horribly. And so he goes to the capital and he's like, he's only had a few days rest and he has to hike to the heavenly capital. He doesn't just teleport, he has to hike there. Like when he came down from Heavenly Realm, he like tripped over the cloud and like he had to hike back to the Heavenly Realm. And it took him a few days. He only had a few days rest. Shilian. So the Heavenly Court has this one main realm. And we're going to talk about the Heavenly Court up here. The Heavenly Realm and the Upper Court. And so they have one main road. And that is the one that is called the Martial Deity Avenue, which is like the funniest name. Martial Deity Avenue. It's like Michigan Avenue. They sell their fur pelts there on the road. There's like nice fancy restaurants. I like they established it in the mortal realm. They try to do like imitation roads, like to imitate it, but it's not the authentic one. The authentic one is very fancy and very regal, right? So then everyone's ignoring Shilian because he's come to deal with Pei Jr., or so he thinks. And he runs into, we're going to put all of our fellow deities over here. He runs into our heavenly officials. And the first one he happens to run into is Long, and the way that it's Shangshu. We don't know how to pronounce their names. And I'm awful with pronunciation, so I'm sure you in the comments are going to give me some suggestions on how to pronounce his name. But I think it's Long. Is it Chanshu? Chanshu? Can I just call him Chan? Can I just call him Chanshu? Chanshu, we're going to go Chanshu until you all tell me that I'm wrong. Which will likely happen as soon as this drops on Patreon and YouTube. So, but anyway, we ran into him. He's interesting. He is sus. He is suspicious. I get Hwasong vibes from him from Odazushi. Very much so. The manhwa has him like riding a tiger, which, why? Why not? Just riding this giant tiger. But so he is the god of the East, which, again, there's some curious things going on with that. One, we established back during the Banyu arc that Shilian had been coming from the East. He had left there for reasons that he doesn't remember, and then decided to like go investigate Banyu and everything. So that's interesting. That's when he ran. That's when he had the compass that was wrong. He was trying to go to the south, and it led him astray. So he came from the east for reasons. So he's probably interacted, but I don't know. That was a while ago, so we don't know. But it seems like, nah, this guy's been around a while, because we find out that he was the rebel general. We find out that Oolong Chonchu, he was the rebel general that overthrew Shilian's home, his capital of his home. So that's interesting. So he overthrew the capital. Okay. So the question is, I'm trying to think of the timeline here. Was this before the plague, and was that during like the whole plague and everything that was going on when Shilian descended for the first time and was trying to save everybody and had all that mess go on with his first ascension? Did he just like sweep in at the end of it and take it over, and that's how he ascended? If so, then I could understand why everybody in the heavenly realm is like gossiping and being like, oh my gosh, how awkward. Like, they're just all like mean girls. They're just like, oh, how awkward, Shilian. He must feel so weird talking to this guy that overthrew the capital of his country. Oh my gosh. And Shilian, like, he's trying not to listen to them. He can obviously hear them. And the novel makes a point of saying that they're talking loud enough so he can hear them to like insult them. I'm like, oh my gosh. But Shilian takes it all in stride. He's like, no, it's fine. Shilian's like, that was 800 years ago. It's fine. I'm like, so Shilian tries to pass it off as it's okay. He's like, you're a crown prince. I'm a crown prince. It's fine. But the gossipers, like all the other heavenly officials, they make it very clear that they're like, well, you know, Shanchu, he's like clearly much stronger than Shilian because he overthrew his capital. That's kind of the weirdest thing about the heavenly realm, is that they're made up of individuals who have all like overthrew each other's capitals and like massacred each other's cities, but now they're all gods and they just act like it's, you know, something you talk about over lunch. Like, it's the weirdest thing. But Shilian's like, it's all in the past. What am I going to do? I'm not going to be petty to this guy just because he's like, he overthrew my kingdom, its capital. I mean, he's like, what can I do? And the thing of it is that he is the crown prince of Yongin, and Shilian makes note that Yongin no longer exists. So you have two crown princes whose kingdoms are no longer in existence. So he was the crown prince of Yongin, which is funny because we just dealt with that with Banyu. But he's weird. I don't know. There's something about him, and not the tiger or anything, but there's just something about him because he's very friendly. He's like super friendly to Shilian, like right off the bat. He's like smiling, like, hello there. And I'm like, Shilian, even though Shilian's friendly, Shilian realizes how awkward the situation is, but he decides to, like, you know, because he's boomer divine being, decides to go along with it. But Long is like instantly like totally fine, like to the point where he's super nice, unlike any of the other heavenly officials. And Shilian doesn't make note that it's like a friendly nice, he's just like really cordial. And then he falls asleep during the meeting. And the meeting, we're going to talk about that. There's just suspiciousness with him. We'll talk about that. I'm going to make a little special point over here with theories. I'm going to make a little special place for theories over here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to tie that in right there. So yeah, so we'll talk about Long. He's just kind of odd. He comes in and he's like the good version of Shilian. He's like, oh look, he's like, this is what the crown prince should be like. He's like this well-mannered to-do heavenly official, and Shilian is our scrap collector who's made fun of by everybody. It's interesting. But he ascended after overthrowing Shilian's capital, home's capital, which again, super awkward, but here we are. And so people gossiping, they want Shilian to hear. And so then we talk about Pei Ming and the whole exile thing. Now, the Manhua said it was 2 years, but I thought that the novel said 200 years. I want to go back and check that and just see what they say as far as how long that's supposed to be. They, like right before when Pei Ming leaves, he's talking with the Windmaster and saying, what does he say? What does he say? He's like, he's been banished and exiled. How long does he say he was exiled for? 200 years. Yeah, so he says 200 years. The Manhua said 2 years, which was a weird translation, but no, he says 200 years of exile, which is a bit It's kind of fitting though. I feel like it's fitting that Pei Jr. is exiled for 200 years because that's how many years he was colluding with Banyu and doing all those things to those people. So that makes sense. So Pei Jr., we get Pei Jr. in here, and he's being exiled for 200 years. And obviously, Pei Ming is not happy about that because this is his up-and-coming dude, right? So I like Shi Lian's concept where he says, my concept of not too bad and Pei Ming's is radically different. Because Shi Lian, he doesn't think 200 years is, he's like, oh, well, 200 years, I mean, that's not too crazy long. He's like, just slap on the wrist, you can possibly come back in 200 years, be totally fine. I imagine Pei Jr. is going to go hang out with Banyu, or he would if Banyu wasn't stuck in the jar. It'd be cool if Shi Lian left Banyu with Pei Jr. to keep company. Like they like each other, so let them kind of keep company together. That'd be fun. I wish he'd do that. But yeah, he's like, I don't think 200 years is so bad, but Pei Jr. seems to think otherwise. And so he runs into Ling Wen. He asks about news of the bandage boy from her, but she's been so busy, we come to find out, dealing with not only the other stuff going on in the realm, but this whole deal with the flame dragon, that she has not had time to do any research on the bandage boy. So the bandage boy is going to remain a mystery, surprising no one. So we'll put the bandage boy up here. He's going to be a mystery for another volume, right? Well, we'll tie back to that. That thing you started with at the beginning of the story, it'll tie all back to the end by the end of it, I'm sure. MXTX is known to do that. She's just that crafty, that salty wench. So yeah, we don't have any news from that. And so we have the meeting. We find out the meeting is not for Pei Jr., but to kind of expose Shi Lian and his possible collusion with Hua Chong. So Pei Ming, I don't know. Here's the thing. As far as the heavenly officials go, much like with our ghosts, I want to reserve judgment on them until we get more about each of them, right? Because I can tell from this story that MXTX is giving us information, and there's going to be stuff revealed as we go through the story. And if we've learned anything from MXTX, nothing is as what it seems. And until we have both sides of the story, we cannot judge characters. So with that being said, I will go ahead and say I like Pei Jr. a lot. I do. He's a little fool, our boy, but he loves Banyu, and he did some stupid stuff, but he was doing it because he loved Banyu. I'm a sucker for that type of character. I'm like, Pei Jr., and he defended her. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so get Pei Ming. Pei Ming shows up, and Pei Ming gives me like a very, like Big Brother Knee vibes. I'm going to put him on here. Big Bro Knee. I'm going to give the vibes to him. He's like, what if the elder Knee brother from Odazushi was a womanizer? Like that's the vibes that I get. What if Hua Song's brother was a womanizer? That seems like Pei Ming. Those are the vibes that I'm getting, because he has a very pragmatic black and white sense of justice, but he's a womanizer. It's the weirdest thing. But yeah, he shows up and confronts Shi Lian, and Shi Lian notes that he was a heart stealer when he was immortal, and that he was a womanizer. And so I like the comparison that some people thought he was like a saint, that he found a prostitute and converted her over to purity to wait on him. And I'm like, girl, you wasting your time. And then I like that on the other end, he like would have tons of one night stands, right? And that people would wish he'd get syphilis, like to curse him, like, oh my God. But yeah, so Shi Lian brings up a really good point, saying as many women as he had these affairs with and as many hearts as he broke, it is a wonder that only Shanji was the one to come out of this as a ghost with severe powers. But, like I said in the reaction, Shanji may have been the only one that colluded with Qirong and got access to those powers. So maybe there's a bunch of other ghostly women bantering about that don't have the major powers that Shanji had. But I feel like Shi Lian brings that up for an interesting reason, that like, you know, him being womanizing, how is it that we only got one bad ghost out of that whole affair? I don't know. So anyway, Pei Ming becomes like the god of love, like considered the god of love, even though he's like this general that's been in all these battles and everything. But he only ascended after he lost a battle. That's interesting. So he ascended after losing a battle. I'm very curious to know what that is. So going back to theory time, like, could he be, I debated this when we first were going through the exposition, but could Pei Ming be the man who broke his sword? The man who broke his sword. One of the four tails. Could Pei Ming have been one of the ones that did that? I think he might have been. I think that would make sense if he broke his sword, it was tied to something heroic, and even though he lost the battle, he won the war and was able to ascend. It seems like maybe it's going to be tied to that. It just feels like, my gut feeling is that it could be tied to that, but I could be wrong. We'll see, right? But Pei Ming, he's so interesting. He definitely has Big Brother Knee vibes, and so it talks about how he'll get it on with anybody. It could be a ghost. It could be a ghost lady. It could be a lady official, but he prefers the mortal ladies. I'm like, what is this heavenly official? Like, so heavenly officials can get it on with the mortals in the human realm? It's a very, like, he has a very Zeus vibe to him. Honestly, if you're going like Roman Greek mythology, like a Jupiter Zeus vibe to him, that he just, because Zeus in like Roman mythology was just like, Zeus in Greek mythology was like, he just got it on with everybody, like whether they were mortal or deity and otherwise. And that kind of is the vibes I get with Pei Ming a little bit. And he was super strong too. So that's interesting. But yeah, all the ladies gush over him at the temples. He's very handsome. The Manhua draws all of the deities and heavenly officials very well. They all look gorgeous and they have beautiful, like, elaborate armor and everything. It's great. But yeah, so Ming questions Xi Lian about knowing San Long. And San Long kind of tries to deny it, but I'm like, Xi Lian, you're the worst liar. He's like, I don't know. He's like, you do. But Xi Lian doesn't lie when he says, he's like, I've only known San Long for a few days, which is true. He's like, I only knew him for a few days, to my knowledge. And I like that the Windmaster comes in to help defend Xi Lian. And we get confirmation that the Windmaster can change their gender, which I think is pretty freaking cool. The Windmaster is just this beautiful person that's like, I just want to look the best. So the question is the Earthmaster, is she a lesbian? Does she only want to hook up with a lady? And that's why the Windmaster became a woman to hang out with her? I don't know. I ship the Wind and Earthmaster quite a bit, so interesting. I find that intriguing. But yeah, so it's amazing that they want to, and I'm going to put down here the Heavenly Court, that we have this thing here. They want to pin the Bon Yu and Pei Jr. affair on Hua Chong. They want to blame him for everything. I was like, what? I'm like, no, Hua Chong had nothing to do with this. He was just following Xi Lian around because he was supposedly bored or wanted to get close to him. But no, they try to pin it all on him. And I love that the Windmaster doesn't go along with it. They're kind of like, And Xi Lian defends Hua Chong. He's like, no, the truth is he had nothing to do with it. He's like, no, absolutely not. Like, that's just a bunch of hogwash. But Pei Ming does not want Pei Jr. to get exiled. He wants to try to keep his dignity intact. Even though Pei Jr. clearly wants to confess, right? And it's funny, I feel like it's interesting that Pei Jr. was at first seemingly okay that they were trying to pin it on Hua Chong because it keeps quiet. It talks about Pei Su keeping quiet in the moment while they're trying to pin everything on Hua Chong. And Xi Lian's like, nope, we're not going to blame him. That's just because he's the most devastating ghost around does not mean he's responsible for every single crime, which is a nice callback to them wanting to literally pin all this stuff on Qi Rong from earlier. That's interesting. But then Pei Jr. does speak up when Pei Ming's like, well, fine. Well, if it wasn't Hua Chong, let's bring that little ghost Xi of Ban Yu out here and question her. And Xi Lian's like, why are we trying to scapegoat her? And his fears from back in the Ban Yu arc are kind of realized when he's like, oh yeah, you all are going to try to make her lie and pin this all on her. Xi Lian's like, no. And thankfully, Pei Jr. confesses. He's like, he does not want Ban Yu brought into this. He's been helping her out all these years to keep this very thing from happening. And so Pei Jr., he confesses. And Pei Ming tries to make him stop, but he's like, He's like, I've got to say my sins and what I've done. And so he confesses. Pei Ming gets so mad about it that he tries to kick him. He's like going to kick him in the head over it. And Junwu, the Heavenly Emperor, stops it. He just stops it. And he's like, look, he's going to be exiled. This matter's over. We're done. And it's like, oh, buddy. So Junwu's like, he's going to be exiled. The matter's over. He's going to get 200 years sentenced. And that's it. So that part is interesting, right? That part's very interesting. And so then we also get some other things in here too before we move on to the next part. And that is, one, we find out that Shilian, for whatever reason, because of how he purifies his body and mind as a cultivator, there's been all these books published about Pei Ming that Shilian's like, I've been curious about reading, but I can't bring myself to do it. I'm like, so Shilian confirmed does not read porn. that is a confirmed thing, because I can only imagine like the scandalous novels that have been published about Pei Ming and his exploits. But also, I skipped this part of my notes, so I want to go back to it. That old Feng Xin and Mu Qing, they're brought in to examine the corpse. Because supposedly they fought Hua Chong. They fought him in the past. Not during his fight with the other 33 deities, though, at some other point. So we find out that Feng Xin and Mu Qing have fought against Hua Chong. Which is curious, because this is like the first we're hearing about it. We heard that Hua Chong fought against the 33 other deities, but not Feng Xin and Mu Qing then. So they fought with him at some point to where they've seen this scimitar. And I want to bring it up over here. So we have Hua Chong. He's over here. And he has this scimitar of Yi Ming. This cursed weapon. Yeah. And so they know the slashes that this weapon makes. And they examine. Just like in the trailer for season 2, when the corpse drops down, we have the corpse drops down of Zhao. And they examine the cuts and determine that, yes, it was a scimitar that was his weapon. So they confirmed that it is here. I also like how Feng Xin, it's interesting how Shilian describes him. He says that Feng Xin seems exactly as he's always been. Like, he describes how he looks. He seems exactly how he's always been. It's curious. He's kind of like has a look similar to Nan Fong, where he has like the same kind of like burly appearance. But then Mu Qing has a much like snobbier, arrogant look about him, which I find fascinating, right? Because it signals to me that Mu Qing, I don't know, I get vibes that Mu Qing feels very guilty for what's happened with Shilian. I get the idea that Mu Qing has rose up the ranks post Shilian's dissension, right? And that he feels guilty. I think he feels very guilty for what's happened and how everything's gone down. Now with Feng Xin, I don't think Feng Xin feels so much guilty, but I feel like he doesn't know what to say. I think there is some guilt there, but I think Feng Xin feels less guilty than Mu Qing, but he still feels like, he's like, I don't know how to address the situation. He's like, it's kind of weird, kind of awkward. I don't know what to say. Because they both abandoned Shilian at some point. Mu Qing like right off the bat, and Feng Xin after a prolonged time, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. But I feel like he's like, this is kind of awkward. I don't know what to say. So it's very curious. But they both examine the corpse, and Feng Xin is the one that speaks up first, saying that it's him. And the scimitar of Yi Ming is brought up, right? And that's when they try to blame Hua Chong for the whole thing with Ban Yu. So yeah, so the Windmaster kind of comes in, that's the matter settled. Junwu is like, okay, we're gonna exile Pei Jr. That part's over. We want to identify that it was Hua Chong that attacked the corpse. And it's like, well, he kind of had to attack the corpse. It's like, there's so much that's left unsaid, and I'm glad that Pei Jr. kind of confessed, because I was like, if they were trying to pin this on Hua Chong based on that one incident, I'm like, there's so much of the story that y'all don't even know. And I guess that's kind of the point MXTX is bringing up, is that in this one trial where they were going to try to pin all this blame on Hua Chong, the thing of it is, Hua Chong's battle with Zhao was like the least thing happening in the entire arc. It was like a 5-minute thing, right? But they were going to blame the entirety of that entire arc on Hua Chong based on a one tiny battle that took up like a 2% of the arc. So it's a cool commentary I feel that the MXTX is making, that these Heavenly Realm officials they're basing so much on so little information. They do not know the full picture of what's happening, and they're blaming a ghost like Hua Chong for everything without even knowing what everything entails. And I'm like, I feel like that's a big theme of what's going to happen in this story, is that there's so much pinned on a person without knowing the full story. So again, I'm going to try to temper my judgment and not judge characters too quickly based on that, because again, we don't know the full context. So I'm going to try to take MXTX's advice and not judge something until we get the full scope of the full picture. But that's fascinating. Very much so. So from there, the Windmaster kind of comes in as Pei Jr. is being exiled. Everybody kind of leaves. They're like, well, the gossip's over. Guess we'll go back to doing what we're doing. And Pei Ming kind of sticks around, and the Windmaster kind of comes in to help Shi Lian. And then Pei Ming says something about, well, you wouldn't want to get your brother riled up. And I'm like, what? Brother? And so Ching Shan is the Windmaster. So we get the Windmaster, Ching Shan. So Ching Shan is the Windmaster. And apparently has an intimidating brother. Okay. That Pei Ming knows of. So I'll put like a little thing down here. Pei Ming knows Xing Shan's brother. Now Xing Shan makes the comment, he's like, well, you wouldn't want to get your brother riled up, and Xing Shan's like, my brother, don't think that intimidates me. Like, my brother's fine. I'm not worried about him. So we talked right before this reaction that the two Shans in the name are the same between the Windmaster and the Ghost of Black Water. Are they related? I don't know. So I'm going to put a theory up here. Is the Windmaster's brother related to the Ghost of Black Water? Or they also made note in this that during, we'll talk about this later with Jun Woo, I'm going to put up the Rainmaster here. I'm going to just put the Rainmaster here for now. We're going to make a little note about it. I'm going to come back to it later. But yeah, so the Windmaster is not deterred by Pei Ming's threat. It's like, no, whatever. I'm not worried about it. And Pei Ming kind of ends up leaving. It's interesting, right? I don't know how to feel about Pei Ming. Again, I get like Mingzhu, I get like Knee Brother vibes, like Mingzhu vibes from up here, but I don't know. A lot of people say they like Pei Ming a lot. I'm kind of indifferent to him at the moment. I'm not usually for like a womanizer character. I don't know. It will kind of depend on where it goes to, but I'm tempering all my bias for now. So I don't want to know any hints about his character later on, but I'm just going to say I'm not going to judge him at all. At the moment, I really like Pei Jr. Pei Jr., I'm like, little sweet bean. You just want to help Banyu out. It's great. And he confesses to keep her out of harm's way. Doing solid work for me, Pei Jr. But Pei Ming, I'm going to put him off to the side. I don't know much about him. He seems a lot like Mingzhu. We'll see if that pans out. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, but then Long Chung-Chu, he's been there the whole time, supposedly asleep. Now, I don't know. That seems kind of suspicious to me. Like, why is he hanging out? Why was he asleep during the meeting? Shi Lian wakes him up. I'm like, it's just suspicious. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me him being asleep, and this is some Modao Zushi spoilers, so ignore the next 30 seconds of this video if you don't want to be spoiled about Modao Zushi. But it reminded me of Hwasong pretending to be asleep, like, through all of the ending, like, Jeonjin Temple arc. Like, it reminded me of Hwasong pretending to be asleep and then waking up being like, oh, what's this? Like, that's the vibes I got from Shanshu. I was like, why are you giving these vibes? It's weird. Why were you asleep during this all-important meeting and then you just conveniently woke up when everybody else left so that Shi Lian could, like, stay there with the Heavenly Emperor and usher you away? It's suspicious and weird, and I don't trust him. I don't know. We'll talk about it, but I'm like, something's up. We're going to talk about... I'm going to put him over here. We're going to talk about Cheonju in a moment because he's in the east. We're going to talk about that. Something's up. Something's up. Something is amiss. So yeah. So a proper god. We get this at the end of chapter 33. This idea that a proper god ascends through heroism and a special ascension. So I feel like MXTX brings this up for a reason that we need to note it. So an actual proper, quote unquote, a proper god ascends through an act of heroism. So we know for Shi Lian, his first ascension was after that battle with the ghost. And then we know from Pei Jr., it was from massacring a city. And so there's lots of different ways and reasons that, I don't know why I close this, that they could become an ascended god. But for the deputies kind of follow and are appointed by the heavenly officials. And then they can rise up either through having a skill that they're good at, or if they don't have a particular skill that they're really good at that makes them rise up through the ranks to become like a civil god or something like that, then, you know, it could be luck, sheer luck, could be a nepotism, could be favoritism. Seems like it's maybe one of these. The way that MXTX writes it, she's like, well, it's either by, you know, if you have a skill or luck, or, you know, you just talk to the right people and know the right people and you might get to ascend. Who knows? So I'm like, there's clearly like some corruption in the court. And the way that the deputies are ascended, because we've established the ascension process, there's no one in charge of it. It just happens. You just ascend because this event happened and it caused you to ascend. But the deputies, them kind of ascending, there's a little bit more control of the heavenly realm, a little bit more politics involved. They call it luck, but I'm like, it sounds political. So that's very interesting, right? I am kind of sad that it doesn't seem like we're going to have Nanfeng or Fu Yao in this arc. That's kind of sad that they're not going to be involved in this. So I'm like, sad face. I mean, I'm glad the Windmaster's here because I like the Windmaster a lot so far. So I'm glad that they are involved in this. But I'm like, oh, Nanfeng Fu Yao. We're not going to get any eye rolls. Sad days. I want the eye rolling. But, oh well, that they need to rest after everything that's happened, clearly. So yeah. So then we have Junwu. Junwu, who is our heavenly emperor, whose name literally means like, I am the Lord. It's like, God. So we have Junwu, who is our heavenly emperor, or he. Think of Powerpuff Girls, him. Like, right? Although him kind of seems to apply more to San Long in this case, right? So Shi Lian, this is the weirdest thing, right? Shi Lian is super reverent to Junwu. He is very reverent to old JW here. Again, MXTX, that we get a lot with that first ascension. Getting a lot with that first ascension. We're getting all the back lore, everything that we're getting. The third ascension is where he's at now, which is him as the Scrap Immortal. The second ascension, we don't speak about it, apparently. It is not being talked about. And that mystery has me so intrigued because I'm like, because we established that at the second ascension, that Shi Lian fought with Junwu. He fought against him for 30 minutes. He lost and he got demoted again. But there's so many questions like, why was he fighting with him when he ascended? What went down that caused his ascension in the first place? Junwu doesn't mention the second ascension at all. He only talks about the one that was 800 years ago. So we're just sweeping it under the rug and forgetting about it. But it seems that he's really reverent to Junwu and he's sincere. Like, it seems like Shi Lian, as far as we know as the audience, he's sincere about that reverence. And I'm like, I don't get good vibes from Junwu. I'll say right off the bat. He plays himself, I don't know, it's like toxic. It's like a toxic, passive-aggressive relationship. And some of the things that he says to Shi Lian in these chapters like made my skin crawl. And I was like, oh no, I don't like this at all. And Shi Lian is really self-deprecating and self-destructive. And I just, there's things in this chapter that I was like, I don't like this. I get bad vibes from this, right? It goes back to when he's telling San Long in the shrine. He's like, well, I did something bad, so I deserve what happened to me. I was like, it seemed like he was a kicked puppy. He had the vibes of like a puppy that's been abused and keeps going back to the owner. That's the vibe I got from Shi Lian and Junwu. I was like, I don't like this at all. So He's very, very reverent to Junwoo. Junwoo, he like, because Shilian like bends down to say that he's sorry, and he's like, "Oh no, get back up. You don't have to bend down to me." Like, it's weird. So I'm like, what happened after that second dissension? Like, because it seems like when they did the exposition dump with Shilian, they established that after his second dissension, after he went up and fought the Heavenly Emperor for 30 minutes and was demoted again, that he turned over a new leaf and decided that he would become, like, he kind of humbled himself. So it's like, did he realize something, that he did something wrong? What did Junwoo say to him? Again, the second ascension is completely shrouded in mystery, and I'm really excited to find out more about it when we get to it, right? So shrouded in mystery. But yeah, so he says that when Junwoo says, when he sent Shilian down after his dissension, so it's almost like, I don't know, it's very toxic, because Junwoo, he's like, well, when you goofed the first time 800 years ago and I demoted you, I told you to keep in communication with me because I wanted to make sure you were okay. I was like, then why'd you descend him the first time? Right? It's like he kicked him down and then was like, well, make sure to keep in contact with me. It's like an abusive relationship. It just feels wrong. There's something about it I don't like. And the way that he says things to him, it's like Frollo with Quasimodo. It's weird. But he's like, but once you left, he's like, you cut off communication. You've been tormenting yourself. It's like, there's just something that doesn't sit right with me about it. And yeah, so Shilian, after that first dissension, he like cut all ties with him and didn't want to talk to him. We don't talk about the second dissension though. We cut all that out. And he's like, well, you said, and the way that I wanted to see how that was translated in the novel, the way that they describe it, he says, well, everything could be forgiven after a stabbing. And I'm like, what does that mean? I was like, that's kind of, how does he phrase it? Right before he gets back, he's like, he talks about this. He says several days ago, before we get to the fire dragon, I wanted to go back to this, where he says, what kind of extraordinary character? He talks about him being all grown up. And he says, if your apology was for those few sword attacks, then let it go. You said it yourself, all is forgiven after a stabbing. And he smiled wryly. How could I forget? Look to the future. There's much we still need of you. But I'm like, it's the weirdest thing, because Junwoo wants to use Shilian, but he's the one that has shackled his power. So it's a control move. He's like, Shilian, he's like Shilian. He's like, look, I guess the whole forgiving after a stabbing thing, maybe that's referring to the second ascension when they fought. But he's like, I've forgiven you. He's like, you still are going to be useful to us. He's like, you still have a lot of use you can do, so don't be so hard on yourself. I'm like, you've shackled his powers. Like, it's a control move. He's like trying to control Shilian. And he's got this like weird psychological grip on Shilian that's kind of unsettling. It's really weird. I don't like it. I can see why Sanlong would not like him at all. I definitely can see it, because it's like, it's just so bizarre. And Shilian's like, well, I'm without power. What can I do? And I'm like, yeah, you're without power because of this guy that's using you. There's a problem there, right? And he even says, he's like, why are you being so self-deprecating? I'm like, oh, I think I did that in the reaction. I was like, I don't like it. He calls him, Junwoo calls him out about being self-deprecating, but I'm like, Shilian's kind of like a kicked puppy. And Junwoo, he doesn't seem to distrust Shilian, and Shilian doesn't seem to distrust Junwoo, but it's the weirdest relationship. I don't like it. It comes across unsettling. It just makes my skin crawl. I don't like it. But they bring up the idea of this ascending fire dragon, which is pretty cool. I like the idea of this ascending fire dragon. It doesn't harm any of the environment. It doesn't harm people. It's a flare, a signal. It does nothing but notify the heavenly officials that another heavenly official is calling out in desperation. That it's something that takes an immense amount of power and that you would only use as a last resort. Which is curious, right? So something's gone down. A heavenly official's in trouble, and they called everybody up, not only to interrogate Pei Jr., but Junwoo admits that he called everybody up there to keep tabs and see who was there and who was missing. And so he makes note that everyone was contacted and was at hand, except like the Rain and the Earthmaster. The Rain and the Earthmaster, he says, are ones that normally don't show up. Well, we know that makes sense for the Earthmaster now. We know that is Ming Yi, and she doesn't show up, which makes sense why she kind of wants to keep herself distanced from the Heavenly Realm, it seems. Can't imagine why. But she like told the Windmaster, she's like, why don't your friends help you? So she doesn't want to be part of the Heavenly Realm. Curious. And then the Rainmaster, I thought that was interesting. So I'm wondering if the Windmaster's brother is maybe the Rainmaster. Again, the Ghost of Blackwater and the Rainmaster I talked about in the exposition seem like they're maybe tied similarly together, maybe. I don't know. It just seems kind of interesting that they're kind of keeping quiet. What if the Earthmaster is in trouble? Because the Earthmaster seemed to know San Long, so something might be up with that. Curious. But yeah, basically, and it happened 7 days ago, which Shi Lian realizes like, 7 days ago was when San Long left my shrine, and that's when that signal was taken out. The timing is curious. Okay, so it's been 7 days. 7 days since San Long left. All right. And since the dragon flare was sent up. Curious indeed. I don't know. Something's up. So it's a self-destructive spell, and they feel that the spell happened around the area of the Ghost City, which I love. I love the Ghost City. It's such a Spirited Away vibe. It's so Spirited Away. It's like that little middle ground between the mortal realm and the ghost realm. Has a very Spirited Away feel to it, and it's where the mortal meets the ghost realm. And there's all sorts of bargaining and stuff. It's like, well, San Long's like Han Solo. It's just his special like pirate city. I love it. So it's between those two realms there. And it's also, curiously enough, in the east. In the east, where old Chan Chu is from, but also where Shi Lian came from all those years ago before he went to Banyu. For reasons he had to leave. So has Shi Lian ran into San Long before? We don't know, but that's all very curious. And so the fire dragon supposedly came from there. And so Junwu admits that he intended to use Shi Lian to go investigate, but he's like, I don't want to use you to investigate if you're going to feel awkward about going alongside where San Long could be in control of, because he reveals that San Long is in control of the ghost city. Shi Lian's like, of course. And he's like, do you still want to go, or will that be too awkward for you? And he's like, no, it'll be fine. He's like, well, you'll have to cooperate with Long here. And Shi Lian's like, water under the bridge. We got this. I can work with him. It's fine. And so I like this little bit of lore that's dropped, that the heavenly realm does not interact with the ghost realm. Interesting. They don't interact with one another. They are very much opposed one another. But Shi Lian can go because his power is restricted and because he's a scrap immortal. So why not? So Junwu's like, well, you're the only one that really can go. So again, he's using him. He's using him to do his dirty work. I don't like it. And so I was trying to give Junwu the benefit of the doubt. I was like, okay, well, this seems kind of toxic and weird, and I don't like Shi Lian being all super reverent to this guy he fought during the Second Ascension, and I don't like where this is going. And then Junwu, very much like Frollo vibes, very much like this toxic, overprotective parent vibes that doesn't sit well with me. He's like, you need to be careful who you're friends with. And I'm like, I'm not having that. Nah. And be careful of that scimitar. I'm like, dude, Shi Lian just told you that San Long's fine. He doesn't have to worry about him. But it's just, and Shi Lian even says, he's like, I'm not a princess like I used to be. It's like, he's like, I'm not naive like I once was. So I get the vibes that when Shi Lian first ascended, he may have like revered and looked to Junwu as like this mentor figure, because he talks about getting the Crimson Blade, like the blade, the red mirror from Junwoo, and like it said the prince who pleased the gods, so it's like, did he like suck up to Junwoo and was like his mentee and like all about him during that first ascension, and then he got mad during the second ascension and came back and fought him, and then supposedly learned the errors of his ways, again like a kicked puppy, and then is now just like trying to be on good terms with him. It seems genuine though. I don't get good vibes. But yeah, he says that the scimitar is a cursed blade of misfortune that needs a terrifying and cruel sacrifice and bloody determination to forge. Which is interesting because you have San Long, who has all this good luck surrounding him, supposedly carrying a blade of misfortune that is made out of like bloody sacrifice. And it's like, which again, does not surprise me because San Long like carved his way out of a volcano of thousands of ghosts he had to kill. Would it surprise me if he sacrificed people to create this blade? No. That seems like kind of in his wheelhouse. But San Long's like, well, he's like, I don't think he's going to hurt me. He's like, I don't feel like he's going to strike me, so I'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think Hua Chong is going to hurt Shilian at all. But Junwoo, he's like, well, you need to go with somebody. You don't need to go by yourself. You need to go with someone that you can get along with and that is powerful enough to help you. And he kind of throws it in his face too. Junwoo's like, well, I guess Mu Qing and Feng Shen are out because you're on the outs with them after everything that's gone down with you all. And I'm like just throwing it in his face, right? And Shilian's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's not going to work. Also, we're going to talk about the debts. We're going to talk about the debts and Feng Shen. But Shilian's like, I guess that won't work. Nah. So he ends up suggesting the Windmaster. Old Junwoo, I don't know why I say Fu. Junwoo's like, well, maybe the Windmaster can go with you. And Shilian's like, yeah, I got along with them fine. Seems like it'll be perfect. Good match, which I think it is. I think the Windmaster is relatively good enough to go with Shilian and they can work together well. But we come to find out from Junwoo that Feng Shen forgave the debts that Shilian owed and forgave it to where he didn't have to pay them back. Which is interesting. Again, tied to this idea that Mu Qing feels guilty. And I feel like Feng Shen wants to make it water under the bridge. He wants to clear things up with Shilian and patch things up. And so like him repaying the debts, him like wanting to say something to Shilian. I feel like Feng Shen wants to talk to Shilian, but he just can't bring himself to, because yeah, at the end of the day, Mu Qing and Feng Shen, they abandoned Shilian and left him to his own devices. And I'm sure they feel bad about it. But Feng Shen's like, I want to mend that bridge. And he just can't bring himself to it. And it seems like Mu Qing has just like completely gotten over it. And he's like, I don't know you. Like we're nothing anymore. And it's like, and that whole conversation they gives to San Long about how you can become a stranger to someone in an instant. That's pretty much Mu Qing and him. So I find that interesting that Feng Shen paid off the debts. And like, it's almost like he wants to like mend that bridge with Shilian and we're just not there yet. So yeah, the Windmaster is assigned to go with him. And Junwoo suggests that Shilian rest in his palace, in the palace of Shanli that's been built for him. And not that little shack shrine. And I'm like, again, there's that air of just toxicity that's just, he's like, oh, go rest in your beautiful palace because you are a heavenly official again now. He's like, and I want you to keep in contact with me like you used, like I told you to before. And it's like, but Shilian, he feels so bad and undeserving of the palace. He just sits outside of it. He's like, I don't feel comfortable going in there. And I'm kind of like, there's nothing wrong with your little shrine. It's like he put all that work into himself. Don't call it a little shack, you heavenly emperor. As you can tell, I'm kind of along the same lines as San Long with the heavenly emperor so far. I'm like, leave our boy alone, right? So he can't bring himself to go in the gates. He ends up sitting outside of the palace, and that is when the Windmaster shows up. And Shilian, bless his bones. I love that. I definitely want to do. He's like, hello, fellow cultivator. Like I feel like I want to do that every time I start my videos from now on. Like, hello, fellow cultivators. Like old Shilian being the sweetest cinnamon bean. And the Windmaster's like, oh, hey, your highness. And it just, Shilian just does not get, like, as soon as I read about the whisk, I'm like, it's the Windmaster. And Shilian did not get what Nanfang was trying to say that we saw in the last section, and that was that the Windmaster can change their gender. They can become a beautiful woman or a beautiful man. And I was like, I love it! I love MXTX being like, we're going to bring some transgender into here, whether you like it or not. And the Windmaster's awesome. I love our Xing Shan. I love them. I'm going to probably call them the Windmaster because it's easier to pronounce. But I love it. I love that the Windmaster is like, oh, I can just become a man or a woman, whatever's the most beautiful, right? Like, I'm thoroughly convinced the Windmaster was trying to get on Mingyi's good side because Mingyi maybe likes ladies. Don't know. I guess we'll see, right? But I love that it's suggested, be like, do you want to be beautiful too? And Shilian's like, no, I don't want to be a lady. And so then they decide that they're going to go off and go to the Ghost City. And that's where the section leads off at. So yeah, this was great. This was a great couple first chapters. I don't know, but here's the thing. There's some things that seem kind of sketchy. And I don't know. Here's my theory wagon over here. And we're going to like bring the theory corner down here. Because MXTX likes to set things up slowly. This is an 8-volume story. We're only on volume 2. This bitch gonna be long. So we're playing the long game. But I'm going to just put out some sketchy things that we're noticing first of all. Some sketchiness that I want to bring out just to kind of clear the air with. I don't suspect Pei Ming for anything, first and foremost. I think Pei Ming is pretty straightforward. Pei Ming is just unhappy that Pei Jr. was being exiled because he's like groomed him to like be the next up and coming god and take over the West, which is old Jishin's, who we don't have him on here, which is Jishin's area. We didn't see him in this part. But Pei Ming is just grooming Pei Jr. to be like another deity to take over another territory. So I don't think Pei Ming is really doing anything underhanded. And here's the thing. San Long trusts, and not necessarily trusts, but respects Pei Ming and Pei Jr. So San Long, for all he is as this evil ghost of devastation, according to the Heavenly Realm, he trusts and or respects Pei Ming. So he believes that despite everything, like Pei Ming, I didn't like that Pei Ming wanted to bring Banyu up into this, and I didn't like that Pei Ming wanted to scapegoat, which is ironic. Pei Ming wanted to scapegoat everything on Hua Chong. Hua Chong's defending him, so it's kind of an ironic thing there. But I think he was really just desperate because he didn't want Pei Ming to get exiled. I think that's the extent of it. I don't think Pei Ming is doing anything underhanded. If the Devastation rank Ghost is saying that he's not underhanded, I'm going to believe him. So I think Pei Ming is okay. I think maybe Pei Ming is is going to be set up as kind of like an antagonist, but he's really not. So I think he's fine. I think he's going to be okay. Kind of like a Mingzhu situation in Moda Azushi, right? Here's where things are getting a little sketchy. So we have that the Ghost City. Oh my gosh, is my marker running out already? We have the Ghost City is where San Long rules. Right? And that is supposedly a sketchy place. It's sketchy and it's in the east. So it's in the domain of Long Changshu, who conveniently stuck around as long as he could. Stuck around as long as he could and is being super congenial. Suspicious to me. I feel it's weird. I'm like, if Shilian hadn't gone up to him and been like, hey, you need to leave, would he have just stuck around there and listened to their conversation? The Emperor didn't make him leave. So that's something else that's weird too. The Emperor didn't wake him up and make him leave. Shilian had to do it. So that's kind of weird. So we're in his domain, in the Ghost City. He has ties to Shilian in the past, right? He has ties to Shilian in the past because he is the one that conquered Shanli, which is his city, that conquered the capital of it in the past. So here's where I'm like, I am wondering if certain members of the Heavenly Realm are trying to set up Shilian, who is this newly third time ascended deity, to set him up for another demotion. or set him up to be imprisoned or like locked away. I feel like it's weird because you have all these characters that are all connected, right? You have Long, who is tied to Shilian in the past, who people have already been gossiping about. There's already been gossip that wouldn't Shilian have animosity towards him? Because here's the thing. Even the Heavenly Emperor is like, well, you know, you'd have to work with Long here. Is that going to be okay? Like, they all think that Shilian has some kind of major beef with him, when Shilian does not. He's like, it's in the past. I'm over it. And it's weird that Jun Woo brings it up even, because he even told him, like, condescendingly, he was like, oh, well, you said, a stab is a stab. It's all in the past. And it's like, well, if that's the case, then why'd you bring it up how it would be hard to work with him, right? Why would you bring that up? So I almost feel like Jun Woo is setting up a situation to either capture or imprison Shilian or Huachong. I'm getting that vibe. I don't know. I feel like Jun Woo and Long are in some kind of cahoots or working with some other group to try and get to where they're going to like catch Huachong in a position where he is guilty of something, or tie in Shilian as well so that they can imprison the both of them. That's where I think this is going. I think it's very weird that someone is missing that used this like super important signal to lure them there to this area that Long is in charge of, to a sketchy ghost city, to try to like tie in and maybe blame Huachong or be like, well, what's happening if you're not responsible, then who is? I feel like they're going to try to scapegoat a ghost into something, but I don't know. And I wonder if they found out that Huachong was with them all, because here's the thing. Nan Fong and Fu Yao suspected that it was Huachong. Who's to say that they didn't go back to the Heavenly Realm and say, hey, we think Huachong's involved with this? They know from the communication array that Shilian has possibly been in contact with Huachong since the beginning of Volume 1. So who's to say that they're not trying to scapegoat Shilian and use him to try to capture and imprison Huachong? Because they know how deadly he is. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark, my friends. And I don't trust Jun Woo at all. I don't like him. I don't trust him. And Long Chong-chi, he's weird. If he's not a part of this, then he's being scapegoated and going to be used as well. So I don't know. It just seems like the way that Jun Woo tells Shilian, he's like, well, this blade of misfortune is really scary and it could really hurt you. And Shilian's like, he's not going to hurt me. And he's like, well, you need to be careful who you associate with. I just feel like it's setting up for a moment where Huachong will get blamed for something bad and Jun Woo will be like, see, I told you couldn't trust him. Like, I feel like that's what's being set up. That they're setting up for like, see, we can't trust him. Like I told you, he's bad news. I get that vibe and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But this is just the first 3 chapters of this book, and I've talked for an hour. This is just the first 3 chapters. This is just part time for an hour on this tiny part of this book. Yeah. So next week we're going to be looking at chapter 35, which chapter 35, how many pages does that span? Chapter 35 is very short, but then the next part's really, really super long. So I don't know. We'll see how far I get. We'll see how much detail is in chapter 35 of next week. We'll see how much detail is in that chapter to determine if I go on and look at chapters 36 through 38. We'll see how I feel about that. I had only the 1 chapter down, but it's only like 15, 20 pages. I might go ahead and look at the next part, but that part's like 40 pages, so we'll see. I might look at chapters 35 through 38. We'll see how I feel. But in any case, I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, but I'm super excited to see what y'all think and what y'all have to say about these first couple chapters. We're in the thick of it now. I feel like the Good Place meme was like, oh, so long, oh, Shilian, we're in it now. And I have a feeling it's going to be like that for a good portion of this volume. So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Heaven Officials Blessing.